What's up, everybody? This is the Ikesinspirations podcast, and today I have a great guest on. I have Dee Greene. Dee Greene is a Christian entrepreneur, and he's a digital nomad. And I'm excited to have him on because I find his journey interesting, and I would love to learn more from him. So he has done a great job creating a six-figure online business, and he's been able to help other Christian entrepreneurs build and grow their business. So, Dee, can you please do us the favor of introducing yourself to the audience and giving a brief story of who you are?
Yeah, my name is Dee Greene, entrepreneur, originally from Indiana. I've been traveling the world as a digital nomad since 2021, currently in Tirana, Albania, actually. And I think one of the things I realized throughout my journey is that it's not just a lack of knowledge that holds a lot of people back, but the fear and doubt. So it's either they're too afraid to take the action they need to take, or they start doubting the process and end up giving up. And so that just became a mind of what I want to help people with, and that's why I created a church.
Yeah, awesome, man. And so, we can kind of start from your journey all the way back. What inspired you to want to start and create an online digital business? Where did that idea come from?
Originally, trying to think of the best way to answer that question.
Yeah.
So, all right. So originally when I was going to school in Indiana University, I was kind of dating this chick or trying to date this chick, talking to this chick. And I remember around spring break time, she just kind of stopped talking to me, less and less and less. And I was I feel like this is a thing women do when they want to go have fun. So they stop trying to talk to you. So that way it feels oh, we're not really together. I'm this is rather than just saying how you feel.
Yeah.
So I was when we got back from spring break, I'm man, I want to create a business. I want to be rich. I want to make her jealous. So that way, and I have to just stay with that dude. So, at the time we had Dope Couture, which was a really big clothing brand at IU. And then one of my boys owned an actual clothing store that we used to do events in. So I was yo, I want to start a clothing line. Could you give me any tips, pointers, whatever? And he's actually, I shut down my store and I started a printing press business. So I can just tell you everything I did, and I can actually print all your shirts and stuff for you. So I was cool. He basically told me everything that he needed to do. And then basically from there, I was man, in order to sell my stuff, I got to be able to learn marketing and stuff like that, right? I got to be able to get it to other people. So that's how I got into YouTube and Instagram and online marketing. But then I was I wasn't making enough money to do it full time. So it's where I'm graduating, trying to get other jobs and stuff. And from there, I came across Ty Lopez on YouTube. And I was I couldn't think of I had some ideas of what I wanted to do, but I couldn't think of a job title. So I'm
sure
to know what I'm looking for on LinkedIn. I don't know what to tell people. Stuff is not really what I want to do. I came across Ty Lopez. I'm that's what I want to do. Bro is just helping people with advice, and then he's selling them a course or coaching or something back in. So that's what got me interested in that. Around 2016, 2017, I started my own social media agency. And then I was doing in-person content for them. I would go into the business, record their videos, post the content for them. But then I started traveling, and I'm man, I'm in Paris, I'm in Italy, I'm in London, I'm in all these different places. I'm I can't enjoy myself fully because I still got to log into their account. They're still asking me, where's this post? And I was I don't have a job, but it still feels like it because I have all these clients telling me what to do. And I want to be boss. If it's my business, I should be telling them, here's what we need to be doing. So 2020, my dream was I want to build an online business that makes $10K per month and allows me to travel the world once every 3 months. And so I was if I can build an online business, I'll be able to help people, but then I'll be able to achieve my dream of wanting to be able to travel and stuff like that.
Awesome, man. And yeah, it's funny. I know you mentioned Ty Lopez. It's interesting the type of effect Ty Lopez has on some people. I heard I feel like when people think of Ty Lopez, they either think of like that online guy who's just always advertising, or I've heard interesting stories where people clearly got a lot of value from him too. So that's interesting, man. So I'm also, you talked about now you are doing this business, and I would like to learn more about it and just essentially explain what do you think caused it to be so successful, and how, were you able to achieve your goal of 10K per month, and if so, how?
I mean, I guess like shameless plug, the way that I did actually end up achieving my dream of hitting 10K per month, I would say is like just by being undeterred, because there's other people that had access to the same knowledge that definitely didn't get the same results.
Yeah.
And I was like, it has to work. Like, it has to work. There's no like, I'm giving up. There's no, I'm going back to another job. There's no, I'm going to quit. There's no crying. There's no complaining. There's no being a victim. It was very tough. I'm like, I have to figure it out. Like, I have to keep going. And I think, I mean, to go further, obviously, it's like investing in a coach, doing YouTube, doing ads. Like, you have all the technical things.
Yeah.
But I think the difference, and this is why I started the business I'm doing now, was I was just like, it doesn't matter how afraid I am. It doesn't matter how doubtful I am. It doesn't matter what challenges or setbacks get in the way. Like, I have to figure out how to do this. And saw a lot of other people that were in the same program. It's not working after a month. They give up. If they got money, they give up. If the ads ain't working, they're giving up. If the content's not, if they're not doing good on sales calls, like, they just give up. You never hear from these people again. And I was just like, that. I can't let that be my story.
Yeah. And I noticed that you named your brand Undeterred. And it seems like that's played a big role, like you mentioned, in your success. Can you do me a favor? What does Undeterred mean to you? And why did you name your brand Undeterred?
Yeah, so it's crazy. So 2019, me and my wife went, if you're in the States, you're going to know the name of this company. But in 2019, me and my wife went to Texas Roadhouse, and I took a little notepad with me, and I was like, yo, I want to try to make another clothing brand, and I want to come up with a cool name for it. So I was like, as we eat, I'm gonna have this notepad. We're gonna come up with names. So we're just on like thesaurus.com, dictionary.com, like all these things, looking at these different words. And I came across Undeterred. I had never heard of it, and it was like to persevere despite setbacks. It was like to keep going no matter what. And I was like, that's it. Like that's what I be trying to tell people. Like, there's so many different strategies, blueprints, all this type of stuff. But if you're undeterred, like, you will be able to achieve your dreams, like, no matter what it is. Because at that point, in 2018, I wanted to propose to my wife in Paris, even though I didn't have a ring, I didn't have any money, she didn't have a passport, never been overseas. Like, that was like an impossible situation. That's how I learned how to be undeterred, because I was like, I want to see what it's like to actually achieve my dream. So I had to just stick with that. So, excuse me. So 2019, I actually came up with that idea, Undeterred. I came up with the actual clothing line. I was making some sales, and I realized, like, it's not really about me growing my own brand in terms of like clothing. I don't really care too much about clothing. I'm not like making designs, I'm going to fashion shows. It's more like, how can I actually help them achieve their dreams? Because the shirt is cool, but they'll need somebody to like coach you. And I was like, that kept going back to like Ty Lopez. I'm like, that's really what I want to do. I want to be people in the room, whiteboard, YouTube videos, whatever. So I had created what was called the Undeterred Success Network, which I came across on like Facebook like a couple months ago. And I was like, dang, I tried to do the same thing. I think it was like $5 a month or something like that. And I was just like, hey, I'll give you tips and pointers, and like, we can all grow. And I don't even know if I ever had anyone join and pay, because that's what I was doing. So I kind of let that go. And then I started my other business in 2020. And then fast forward to 2023 in like November or something like that, a lady asked me to come on her virtual summit. And then she was like, the information that you're sharing, I feel like, is bigger than what you're doing now. And she said a couple other things, but she was just like, I don't know where that came from, but I just feel like God is telling you to, like, he just told me to tell you that. So afterwards, I went on a walk, and I was like, I felt like God was asking me, what is it that you want to be successful in? Like, what is the one thing you want to be successful in? I will help you get there, but you have to pick one thing. And I was like, at the time, I was helping people with YouTube, and I was like, I don't really care about YouTube that much. I don't want to be introduced as like, yo, Dee Greene, like the author of the best-selling YouTube. as I was looking around, I'm like, oh, a lot of these people just gave up on their dreams, like almost everybody. And just settling for less in a life where we only get one chance. And I'm like, if you got to do what you got to do. And if you're happy with your situation, that's another thing. But if you just gave up on your dreams, like, bro, we only have one life. And I'm like, if I could take my brain and put it into their brain, their life would look so different. And I was like, that's what I need to be doing. I need to be teaching them, like, here's how to be undeterred. Here's how to achieve your dreams. And at that point, I was put into their shoes because I'm like, I have a business that's making money. Do I keep doing that? And then meanwhile saying, hey, I'm going to do this other business one day, but I can't do it now because I'm afraid, like, what if it doesn't work? What if I don't make money? Or do I just say, this is what God's calling me to do, and I got to do it now. So I just shut down all the other stuff that I was doing, and I was like, I'm just going to focus like full-time on this.
Man, love it, man. As you speak, man, I don't know. I remember I was looking at your Undeterred brand while I was doing research, and you had like the white flag. I don't know. The first thing that just popped up in my mind was Nipsey Hussle. I don't know if you're familiar with Nipsey in the brand, but you know, you're talking about
the marathon.
Yeah, the Marathon Continues brand. The grind never stops. I love Nipsey. I love what you represent. And I was researching your brand and the work you do. I was like, man, the work you do, me personally reminded me of what Nipsey does. So I really like that, you know. And, you know, you talk about being undeterred, which is essentially, like you said, the ability to persevere through all your failures or whatever is your setbacks. You know, so as I'm hearing you speak, and because undeterred is such a powerful word for you, I'm curious to learn, what are some of the setbacks that you've went through? And if you don't mind, can you share like perhaps the most difficult setback that you have had to overcome, and how did you grow from that?
Just like in general, or like
yeah, it could be life, it could be health, it could be business, just in general, you know?
Yeah. Oh, the reason that I am who I am today, I truly believe, is because of like what I had to go through as a kid growing up. When I was, I don't remember, 8 or 9 years old, I was in second grade. For my mom's boyfriend that she was dating at the time, he didn't like something that I did, asked me to come in the room, threw me up against the wall, and just started going crazy, bro. It's like the first time that I experienced something like that as a kid. And that basically continued from age 9 to 14. So 5 years, you know, or from 8 to 14, however, like 5, 6 years, 7 years. And there was times where there was knives pulled out. There was times where I was choked, times where my head was put up, where I was kicked, punched, like all of these slapped, everything, bro. And there was so many times where like there's nothing I could do. It's not like I mean, there were, I guess, like technically, like there you could run away, you could do these types
of things. But you're a kid, yeah.
As kids, you're very limited. And I remember even one time, I don't remember how old I was. I think I would have had to have been 12 or 13. And I was like, I'm gonna kill this guy. I remember. I was like, I'm tired of this. So it was in the morning. I had to go to school, so they were still sleeping. My mom and him. At this point, they're married. So I went into the kitchen. I grabbed like some scissors, I think. I can't remember if I had a scissors or knife. And I was like, this is like a big thing I got to do. So I'm like hyping myself up. I'm like, I'm sitting like on the steps. And I'm like, all right, I got to like try to go in there and do this. But like, I can't hit my mom though. And he's not a little guy either. Like he's like 6'4", 6'5". So I'm like, if I do it, if I don't get him right, like I'm probably done. So I'm just sitting there, and then I remember my mom comes, and then she's like, what are you doing? And then I told her, and she's like, you can't do that. Like, you'll go to jail forever. Like, your life will be done. Like, you gotta relax. And long story short, like, when I was 14, me and him got into, like, an altercation. I went to the neighbors, told them to call the police. They didn't. I stayed with them the night. Next day, I came back home. We all, like, kind of got in another disagreement. Went to school the next day. Towards the end of the day, they were like, yo, you need to clock out. Like you gotta, or not clock out. You gotta go to, you gotta sign out. You gotta go to all of your teachers and sign out because you have a flight to go from Texas to Indiana. And I was like, what? So my mom came, she had like this big body bag of like all my clothes. And my aunt had basically heard what was going on. And she was like, he can just come live with me. So I took all my stuff, packed it up, and then I just moved from Texas to Indiana, and felt like God gave me a brand new life, brand new life. And I was like, I'm not going to waste it. I'm not going to be someone that's like, I went through all of that to complain about it the rest of my life and say, the reason why I am who I am in a negative way is because the way they treated me, the way that this happened. I was like, I can't do that. I'm not going to go the rest. Like, I feel like if you get wrongly accused of if you get wrongly accused of something and you get put in prison, let's say for 6 years, then in your mind, you're thinking you're going to do life. But they say, hey, you know what? We made a mistake. We're going to let you out. You have two options. Either you can spend the rest of your life complaining about that 6 years, or you can take advantage of now you don't have to do life. Right? Like, so it doesn't mean that they're not wrong and you can address that. But if you just spend the rest of your life dwelling on that, you just wasted the opportunity that you could take advantage of by being free. And that's how I looked at it. I was like, God gave me a new opportunity. I'm not going to complain about this. I'm not going to do all this. I'm going to use this as fuel to make my life even better. And so now I feel like when I have that same mentality going into business, even when I check my bank account, it's negative. I'm like, yo, but I can go to sleep without the lights getting turned on at 10 p.m. and getting beat up. And so it's a totally different mindset of just, I think going through, like I had to build a mindset most adults don't have now as an 8-year-old, as a 9-year-old, as a 10-year-old. So I think to me, that is definitely has to be like the biggest, like that was years, bro. Like that's a long time, when I think about that. And it's a crazy time in my life. And so now dude, there's times where I couldn't like go outside or do anything. I'm just like in the room days and days, weeks, staring out the window to now be able to travel. Like, bro, I'm living in, Hungary, Turkey, Albania, all these countries. And just to be like out and about impacting people is such a blessing. So I know like what that feels like to be stuck, to be facing setbacks and challenges. And I know what it feels like to literally not be able to do anything other than like run away or kill this person. Like there's not a lot of options I have. So as an adult, when I see people feeling like giving up because they're going through these challenges and setbacks, I'm like, but you have so many choices though. Like we have the opportunity. You're not 8, you're not 9, like you're an adult, bro. Like we got podcasts, we got books, we got mentors, we got so many opportunities that if you're just going to spend the rest of your life complaining, like you're wasting your life, I so now going from that situation as a kid where I couldn't do anything to now being an adult where I have so many options is just the passion of me to help other adults see that like, bro, you can live a better life. It doesn't matter the past you had, doesn't matter the challenges and setbacks. Like there's so many things we can still do to overcome that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you for having the courage to share that story. That was very, very interesting, and I'm glad you overcame that. Some of the people that I find the most interesting in the world are the most interesting people in the world to me are people who've experienced great success despite the trauma that they went through, whether it's some type of health battle, extreme poverty, growing up in a gang, being bullied, or some form of domestic violence. And as I continue to study these people, it's like what you said. I noticed they have two choices. You can either look at it and start to victimize yourself and be like, man, no one likes me. This is who I am. I'm a low life. I don't deserve anything. Or you can look at it and be like, this isn't gonna define me. I'm gonna become a better human being as a result of that. And it's just interesting because I feel like most people like to victimize themselves, but you chose to empower yourself. I'm curious, why do you feel like God favored you, and why despite your setbacks, you still chose to have faith in God? Because I feel like someone could have told a story that like, man, if God loved me, why the fuck would he do this to me? But you chose to be like, this is God help me out. Why did you look at it like that?
I think it's the same thing with like the prison analogy, bro. If you in your mind are like, I'm going to be in prison for life, and you're praying every day, like, God, I don't know how, but please let me get out of here some way. and then 6 years into your sentence, some miraculous thing happens and you get out, bro, you know that guy helped you. It hits different, you know. So for the stuff that I went through, bro, as a kid, and just praying, like even as a kid, and to see how it developed, I personally made a promise, like with God, where I'm like, yo, if you ever get me out of this, like I promise you, I'm not gonna waste my life. I promise you. Like, just get me out of this and I'll show you. Like, I'm not gonna waste it. I will have faith and I'll take the action. So I feel like he was like, bet, all right, you out. Let me see what you're talking about now. So I'm like, I'm gonna do my part. Like, I feel like God don't even have to do nothing else for me. It's like, you already did that. So now I'm just continuing to do my part. And I think the way I look at life, I see a lot of people that want to be right. They did this to Black people. They did this. They treated me like this. And so now you're like, I should be able to talk about slavery. I should be able to talk about, the physical abuse that I had. I should be able to talk about being in the hood or not having money or being a minority. And I'm like, then you're just only being right. But that doesn't help you achieve your dream. So it's not about being right. It's about achieving the thing you want. So if complaining doesn't help you achieve that thing, then it's not really beneficial. So that's where, to me, I'm like, either I could complain about it or I could do something else, about it. So to me, I'm like, being mad at my mom, being mad at him it's not that I'm wrong for doing that, but it's not going to help me. It's not going to help me build a 6-figure business. So actions do I need to take? It's the same thing for somebody does something wrong to you in the hood. It's not that maybe you're wrong in beating them up or killing them or whatever it is. But if you're in prison for the rest of your life, you can't take care of your family, take care of your kids, make money. So it's not, I think everyone's they're just trying to be right. And I'm like, it's not about being right. It's about being able to achieve the thing that you want. So that's, you got to shift your mindset. My mindset is if I'm going from a location to my house, my goal is to make it home to my family. So if there's a police officer that gets in the way, it's not my goal to be right. My goal is to get home. So arguing, doing all this nonsense is going to block me from doing that thing. But a lot of other people I want to be right. I'm not showing you my idea. I'm not doing it, blah, blah, blah. Now you're messing up your own situation. And I think if people would think about it differently, it's not about the ego. It's not about being right. It's about, what are you trying to achieve? A lot of people don't even know that. It's what are you trying to achieve? And then everything else is just a challenge or a setback. You just got to move out the way. If you're playing a video game and they said, to beat this level, you got to make it home. You're not going to be arguing with the police officer. You're not going to be wasting time doing this because you're like, I got to do this thing to beat the level. So if you treat your life like that, then you just brush everything else off. Bro, just keep it moving. Do what you got to do to get there. Don't waste time trying to be right and have an ego along the way, because I feel like that's what messes people up.
Man, I love everything you're saying, man. You talked about it with racism and victimhood. I'm gonna take it even deeper, man, because honestly, this is a personal battle. The need to be right versus versus what's actually helping you has been my personal battle with my relationship with God. I grew up, I'm very logical and analytical, and once you really start to actually think about, does God exist? Where is the science to prove it? And on all that, you really start. I used to get into existential battles of the existence of God, But once I really started to remove my ego, started to meet more Christians like you, and seeing all the works that have happened once I started praying, deepening my relationship with other Christians, I even though I can't say I know that God exists, I can truly say I believe that God exists and I have faith. And once I started moving in that direction, my life has been so much better. You know what I'm saying? And I've been able to meet incredible people like you. I've been making more better friends, and I have more peace with myself. So it's interesting to say how you choose to care less about what's right and care more about what's being useful, because that's what's serving you, right? So that's awesome to say, man. And I'm curious, man. How does your relationship with God develop over your years, and how has it helped with your entrepreneurial journey?
I think it is just like it's like a muscle kind of. I mean, if you had, the way my mind works is always like an analogy. So imagine you're like a little kid, right? And you got a big brother. Your big brother is like 10 years older than you. Every time you get in a fight or you're about to get in a fight, you call your brother beats the people up. You're so stressed though. Like you're like, oh, this person's going to come. They're going to kill me. They're going to fight me. And it never happens. Your brother always comes and, saves the day. At some point, you're being foolish if you keep getting stressed out every time someone says they're going to fight you, because time after time after time after time, your brother has saved you. I think it's the same way with God. If he's always providing for you every time, why do you keep stressing every time you get into a situation that you don't know the outcome? Is foolish. Like at some point you have to believe, like, bro, he's going to provide for you. Yeah. And the other thing to that is, if you aren't seeing signs of God providing for you, you're not doing enough. You're not putting yourself in a situation where it would require him to provide for you. So you're trying to do everything strengths. But if you would put yourself in situations where you're chasing your dream, trying to build a business, trying to do more with your life, there's going to be situations where you're doing all you can do and he has to provide. And when you're doing that time after time after time after time, year after year after year after year after year, like you said, you don't know, like you don't have 100% like proof that God exists, but in your mind, you're like, I fully believe it because it's like gravity, right? I don't have to really prove it. Like, hey, this for sure is gravity. I just know, like, if this is what happens every time,
yes,
like, this is what I can expect. So that's what's, for me, it's like experience. So I don't get into like these arguments of like, is God real? And I'm like, you have to experience it. And so if you're willing to experience him, I'll tell you how to do that. But if you're not willing to do that, I mean, I can send you other things like sermons and stuff. But to me, it's like, you have to really experience it. Because even people like they don't really believe it. They think they do. But it's like when life becomes hard, are they really relying on God? Because if they're not, then they don't believe it either. So it's like, you have to really, I think you have to experience it.
Yeah, man, I love it, man. I've noticed that, like, honestly, like an experience or a revelation will help you deepen your relationship with God far more than any sermon or like a weekly going to Sunday church, because it's one thing to actually like hear those messages, but to actually experience it is a whole different thing. And I know exactly how you feel, man. I think it's like what you said about increasing your faith muscle, man. Like the more experiences and testimonies you have of overcoming hardship, the more your personal relationship and faith develops. Because you're like, yo, man, I went to pharmacy school for 6 years. I'm a pharmacist. Like, and I know that wasn't easy, man. Like, I told myself I was going to move to Atlanta from Philly to Delphi. I knew that wasn't easy, man. I overcame so much, and God continues to bless me despite, even if I don't deserve it. So, I feel like the more testimonies you have, the more your faith muscle increases. You feel so? Yeah.
100%.
And yeah. So, man, my next question to you, man, is because I'm just personally been very intentional about my relationship with God, and I'm just curious, how do you know when God is speaking to you, and how do you know how to be obedient to that voice? The reason I like to ask people that is I feel like if we can figure out how to follow what God wants us to do, then like that's where we'll have everything our heart truly desires. So I'm always keen on learning how people are in tune with God.
Yeah, I think I'll give you a strange answer that probably no one else will say. But
yeah,
for me, how do I say it? One thing that I've done that helps me like know if I'm hearing from God or the Holy Spirit is kind of like the same thing that they do in the movie Inception. So the movie Inception, right? Like they go into a dream world. And in order to know that you're dreaming, I forget what it's called, but they're supposed to have like an object that only they know how it feels, how it moves. That way they can interact with it and they know if they're in a dream or not. But no one else is supposed to know what that is. So if they're in a weird situation, they can pull that thing out and it tells them if they're in a dream or not. I feel like we almost need something like that when it comes to speaking with God or the Holy Spirit. I'm not going to say what mine is, because then people are going to try to do that and that might not work for you. But I think you need to come up with something that's like, hey, God, if you're speaking to me, show me. And then God kind of gives you that same, for example, maybe your knee tickles, right? Every time when you're like down, right? Because I feel like if we're really seeking God, he's really going to give us a sign. So I think if you're continuously getting that same sign from him, something that you can easily tell, is going to make it a lot easier. I think the second thing is like, the way that you know if you're being obedient to God is the same way maybe you know if you're being obedient to your parents. You know your mom, you know your dad, so you know the type of things that they would want you to do. Like, oh, my mom wouldn't want me to do that. Did she say that? No, but I just know, like, that's my mom. She's not doing that. So the more that we read the Bible, the more that we learn about God, the more that we learn about his ways, and so we know what you do, why you want it. It's the same with the story about like the 3 talents, right? The guy gave 3 people different talents. 1 10, 5, 1 10, the other one 5, the other one none. He comes back, the guy with 10 multiplied it, the guy with 5 multiplied it, the guy with 0 buried it in the ground, or 1 or whatever it was, buried it in the ground, didn't do anything with it. And he told them, you wicked, evil servant, cast him out into darkness. Now, he never told any of them to go invest it, but he said, if you knew the type of person I was, then this is what you should have already known what to do. I think it's the same with God, right? If you know the type of God he is, then you know the type of action he wants you to do. You don't always need to be sitting around like, I'm waiting for God. I'm waiting for him to give me a sign. It's like, bro, you know what you know what he wants you to do. And if you end up doing something that is maybe out of alignment, but you have the right intentions, like, I feel like God will still correct us. Like, he will still give us the confirmation. There'll be other people. But I think it's seeking God and then having a way to know if this is him speaking to you your own way. And then also gaining more knowledge about the type of God he is. That way you don't always have to like, oh, well, what does he want me to do? Like, you know what type of God he is. So you just line your actions up with what he'd want you to do.
Yeah. They say God also speaks to people in whispers. And I feel like for me, I personally believe I hear God's voice the most in solitude, when I'm free from distractions and it's just me and my own thoughts. And I feel like that's when God speaks to me. I also journal on a daily basis. And I feel like when I'm writing, answers just come to me on how I should move forward in my life. But I love to hear other people's stories and their how they feel like they get in tune. Do you feel like God speaks to you through ideas?
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's like everything. I feel like it's like, you know, it's a relationship, right? Like with my wife, I can hear you better if it's just us. But yeah, if I got to text you, I can text you. We got to do a voice message, we can. If we're at somewhere and the noise is too loud, like we got to use our hands or whatever. So there's times where God speaks to me louder than others, but if I'm at a place and it's noisy, I can go in internally and take a little break. Like I said, like, and know, like, God, is this you speaking to me? Like, what do you want me to do in this situation? I think too many Christians, like, we're only like prayers. It's like, oh, I'm alone, I'm going to pray. And it's like, it's not just about praying. It's like, can you just like speak to God and hear from them anywhere that you're at? Like, anytime you're in a crazy situation, anytime you need to make a decision, and get information on the spot right then. I think a lot of us waste time. It's like, oh, let me pray about it. Let me go and wait until no one's around me. And when I get that moment, then I'm going to pray. And then I'm going to take 10 days to get the answer. And it's like, you should be able to like tap into God and the Holy Spirit and hear what he's saying like right away. And people are like, he doesn't always answer my question right away. I'm like, if you pray right now, God, do you want me to buy a Lamborghini? Did you hear from him? No. Okay. Well, he's not telling you to buy it then. Like, that's your answer. You know what I mean? So I'm like, if you feel like he's telling you to do something, he's telling you to do it. If you don't hear anything, then it's like, don't do it right now. So I'm like, you should be able to tap into that in multiple places. And and then you're going to have your strengths, right? Like for me, it's like going on a walk. Like if I go on a walk, no one's with me, no music or anything like that, and I'm just in a nice city, like that's where I hear the most, or like I'm in the shower. But also like if I'm on this podcast and you say something, I got to be able to be like, God, give me like a better answer, like when I answer this question, and not have to be like, yo, bro, let me think about it and we'll do another episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you build that muscle over time, but I feel like sometimes we don't tap into it as much.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I thought of one of my favorite Bible verses, James 4:4, faith without action is dead. And I feel like, you know, it's one thing to pray, but I feel like prayer is just the first step towards achieving whatever you want or trying to get to it. You still have to actually act on that prayer. You know what I'm saying? And so as you were speaking, that's what I heard. And I agree. I think God speaks to us through other people, especially other Christians who have like-minded values. I feel like God tends to speak to me through loving people. So whenever, that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast. I listen intently because I feel like sometimes someone might just say something. I'm like, and I write that down and I just, act on it like the next day or the following hours because I feel like God is speaking to me through then. So you're a digital nomad, man, and I'm just kind of curious to hear more about that and what your lifestyle is like. What is it like being a digital nomad? I see you're traveling the world, and it must be interesting. And I'm also kind of curious to learn, what has traveling so much taught you about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, 2 days ago we had an assassination attempt. Either we had assassination attempt from some people, or we had a staged assassination attempt based on other people.
Yeah.
Either way, it goes to show you like how crazy the US is. Like there's just so much wild stuff going on, and most of them involve like guns or some type of violence in some type of way. So for me to be out of that environment, it just allows you to think and to just live so much better and so much more peaceful. Like when I'm not worried about that all the time and all that, like you get to feel that tension. If you take someone out the US, bring them over here to Europe or somewhere for 2 months, like you feel the difference. So I think for me, like going back to what we were talking about before about, being a victim versus like, what can I do to take control of to live my life? I think in the US or in our home countries, we're told this is how women are. This is how Black people are. This is how XYZ is. But when you travel, everyone is doing something different. Like you go to Italy, right? They're about family. You go to, this place and they're about you could go to Asia. Maybe they're more about like hospitality. So when I'm traveling, like you get to take the best mindsets and adapt them as your own and get rid of the ones that you don't identify with. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like there's a lot of great things we as people have figured out, but now we're spread apart in these different countries. And so we're only taking advantage of what our country is doing versus saying like, yo, these people have figured this out good. We should do that. These people are good at that. We should do that. These people are good at that. So that to me has been like the best.
And one thing that that the UK and Canada have figured out that freaking America hasn't is the healthcare system. Like I know this is kind of random, but I'm a pharmacist, so I think about it a lot. And they do a good job of providing free healthcare and like not making sure that medical bills are as expensive. I just had a podcast with a British finance advisor, and he was just talking about how he was able to get healthcare and free surgery. And I was just jealous because you know how it is here. Like if you get sick or whatever, like the medical bills can just add up. So that's just to prove to your point that like there's stuff we can learn from other countries, And you've traveled a lot. You've been to a lot of countries. I'm curious to learn like what was your favorite country that you've been to, and what did you enjoy the most about it?
I think so far my favorite country has been Hungary, specifically Budapest, Hungary. Because one, it's super modern. It's like one of the most beautiful countries that I've ever been to. Like it just looks amazing. It's very like affordable. The people are very nice. And like the state that they're in now is like, I think it's like considered a Christian country. Like there's times where they have like fireworks or shows and like they still put the cross up. They still talk about
wow.
it. Yeah. And it's very close to other places. Like that I would say has been like, there's just so much there that you can really resonate with, or that I can resonate with the type of person that I
am. Yeah. Okay, man. And I'm just curious, why is traveling the road so important to you? Why is that like something that like you find yourself doing often? Because I think it's interesting. It's something I would like to employ someday. Because I feel like in America, one of the things I don't like about Americans as much is that we're so like egotistical and only into our own country. I've noticed that when I met people who are international in America, they can speak about other countries and like have like our conversation. And I think that's so cool. But if you talk to Americans about Europe or like Africa, like we can't even talk about it more than 2 minutes, and we switch to the NBA or whatever, and it's like, all right, like it's cool or whatever. But like I value when people have international perspective. I actually want to have a broader international perspective, and it's something I aim to do. So I'm just kind of curious to learn, like, like why are you like so keen on traveling?
And even like with as much as I travel, bro, I'm still kind of that person. I don't know a lot about these countries. Like if you ask me a lot about Beijing, I'm not gonna know. But I think for me, it's like I really care about like the people. And I don't know, I've just felt like that's what God has called me to do. I mean, I think the internet is a beautiful place. And I think, we're so focused these days on like having a podcast or a platform. It's like, how do I reach more people? But it just hits different when like you're impacting people in person. Like you're learning a little bit of Albanian or French or whatever it is, and you're going there and you can see the impact. Like having a podcast is, don't get me wrong, like it's dope, right? But it's like, sometimes you can't see the impact of the person that's listening, So it's like, you're like, this is doing a good thing. I know the numbers are running up, but like, you don't really always see like the difference, but being able to like continuously meet up with people, see how their life is changing, to do that around the world, and to go to places where you can give someone $200-$300 and it changed like their whole life. Like, is like the important thing. I don't know a lot about the buildings. I don't know a lot about the history, but it's like, if you ask the people that are in the same area that I've been to, like they can tell you like how I made them feel. And I can tell you like about the relationship. Like to me, that's like the most important thing. I feel you completely. I've been a content creator for several years, and one of the things that I don't like about content creating, at least for me, is like, when even if a post is going viral, you kind of get like superficial comments like fire emojis or like oh, nice job, bro, but like you can't actually feel the depth of the impact. And I do completely agree with you. It's different when you can actually hear like personal, real anecdotes of what your words or your service has done for another person. I completely agree. Do you have any personal stories where you were able to deeply impact someone's life from international traveling? Man, every day, bro.
Share some.
Like, that's a good question. You're like, man, there's so many. Share one.
Share one that's like the most impactful,
The most impactful. I mean, for example, like this is just like a example that comes to my head, like an easy one.
Sure.
I remember when we were in Colombia and we were going to this church, and they're like the biggest international church there. So they mainly speak in Spanish, but they had like devices that you could hear everything in English on. But it was like trash. Like you can't really hear that well. One of my friends, God bless her heart, sweet lady, but it's like the pastor is like super animated. And then like just because of how hard it is to be a translator, like they don't do that same emotion, right? So it's like, you can see him, but then when you hear it, it's different. You can hardly hear it. It's uncomfortable wearing the thing. You have to turn it up so loud to hear it that now they're like shouting in your ear. So they were saying like, we want to build a booth. That way that person could be isolated. And then we'll be able to have like an app and then maybe like a room that other people can go in and blah, blah. And then they're just like, but it'd be like so hard to like, piece all of that together. We got to buy the app. We got to buy the booths. We got to buy the TV, like set all this stuff up. In my mind, come from America, I'm like, oh, it's going to be like 20 grand or 30 grand or like big project. So I was like, what would it take for you guys to do that? And like, oh, I don't know. That'd be like $400 or $500. I was like, let's do it. I'm like, what do you mean? I'll send you the money. Like, just build it. I'm like, really? Yeah, bro, just do it. So like, that was super dope, bro. Like within a couple of weeks or like a month, it's like to see them like using that booth and like being able to like operate and to see all the screens they had in there, and like you never like whose life like that's going to bring to Christ like through that. There's been people that in different countries we've been able to pay for their rent for like a couple months. People that I've talked to that had normal jobs, like just living in the States, that now we're traveling and have homes in like different countries that I've talked to. There's been people that are working like local jobs that have quit their jobs, started a business, or decided to work somewhere else. Just like a lot. I think a lot of it too is just like being there for people, during those times where they feel like giving up or they feel like quitting. And like most people, like they don't have someone to believe in them. They're just telling them to give up. So just to be that person that's there that helps them to keep pushing and to keep doing their thing. Like that has been like the dopest. So it's like so many of those types of stories and so many bigger ones, man. But it's just like it's super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And the dope thing about that is like I feel like something we take for granted as Americans. The American dollar goes a long way in other countries, man. It really stretches, and a couple $100 to you may be nothing, but that's like a whole like life, like like life changing for another person. So it's kind of interesting how like you can simply have that deep of an impact by giving something that's not much worth to you.
Right.
That's cool, man. I noticed that you were also, I saw on your Instagram you were able to get on TV in Albania. I thought that was interesting. I wanted to like learn, okay, man, how the hell did you get on TV? And like, what was that like? Yeah.
Man, I did I did a YouTube video about it, but basically I went to like this. So I was telling one of my friends, I want to meet more people here in Tirana, Albania. And there's a co-working space you should go to. So he's like, here's the number. I hit them up. I'm like, what are the packages you have? One of the packages was like almost $200 like per month. I'm like, I don't have $200 to spend on that because I just like am starting this new business. But they're like, hey, if you want to come in for free, you can come in. So I'm like, I'll come in, some other time, like closer to when I have the money. But then I'm like, why am I going to wait? Like, let me just go in now. I can build the connections. And then maybe those connections, I can hang out with those people outside of the co-working. You never know what happens.
Yeah.
Come in, have a really good time. Everyone is super nice. The next week, this guy messaged me and he's like, yo, we're looking for someone to interview on TV about being a digital nomad. And someone at the co-working space gave us your name. And he's like, it's at 7:00 in the morning. Do you want to do it? I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I don't want to do it, bro. Like, I don't want to wake up at 7. I don't know like what show this is. Like, it's going to be mad awkward. Like all stuff, right? And I'm like, I just need to say yeah and see like what it is
like. Yeah.
Come, bring the driver, take me to the studio. And then like, I didn't know what to expect. And I get in there, I'm like, yo, this is like legit. Like, I've never been in like an actual like studio, like just all the monitors and all this stuff. And then, yeah, like that, we had to do like the makeup, like all that stuff. And then we just got on the show and like did the episode or whatever.
Yeah. And you enjoyed it? You said I had a good time. Would you do it again?
Bro. Yeah, I would, bro. I could see, I was like, man, it would be fun to like have like a show, like a proper show like that, where you have the cameras and the setup and all that type of stuff versus like, like kind of like what we do now, where it's like, we're gonna set up the camera, we're going to do is like, I feel like that's a cool vibe. But like, I was like, yo, to have like a daily show or something like that would be super dope. I think also like the thing about me is like, you never know like where those relationships could go. Cause like, bro, these people are doing like TV shows. Like how many people do they know in Albania?
Yeah.
And, like, that's why I'm like always trying to show them mad respect. And so I'm like, you never know. Sometimes it's like a year later or 2 years later, or like my episode with them is like on YouTube now. So you never know who's going to go back and see that. Like I tagged them in a video, they reposted it. And like, I got a whole bunch of people from Albania following me. So, yeah, it was cool, bro.
I completely agree. And that's why I like that you're cherishing relationships. It's why I personally have been so intentional about this podcast. Every time I post a podcast once a week or I record one, I'm building a relationship. Right now, we're building a relationship. We're building a connection. And you never know where it leads to, man. Like you said, man, you never know. Maybe a year or two, I feel called to message you, or you feel called to message me, and we link. You never know, man. But I like that by podcasting, I'm developing the ability to form and build connections with people, because I think it's very important. And I feel like we're meant to be social beings,
Yeah.
So, man, I also learned, I also know that you read a couple books, and I'm a pretty avid reader myself. I love to read, so I also wanted to just talk to you about books and learn about what books had the biggest impact on your life, and why did it do so, or what book had the biggest impact on your life?
Oh man, the biggest. If obviously we're not going to be spiritual and say the Bible, because that's just like given, right? Yeah. I think I would probably say the 4-Hour Workweek, bro. Like when I heard about that, I read it.
Makes sense.
Like, And then I was like, this is some cool stuff. And then like, as I started like really like traveling and like learning more about stuff, I was like, I need to read this book again. And I think I reread it in 2019 or 2020. And I was like, I'm going to make that happen. I was like, I don't know about the 4-hour part, but I'm going to travel and I'm going to have an online business and I'm going to go see the world. And that planted the seed in my head, like to do like what now. I was like, I got to figure out a way to like make this happen.
Yeah, by The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That's a good book. He's a great man.
Because everything else was like business. It's like it changed my life kind of, but like that like those other ones helped me learn a lot, but that like changed my life. Like I don't think I would be traveling. I would probably just be in the States making
Great. What made that The 4-Hour Work Week such a great book and kind of unique is that it focused on business, but it also kind of focused more on your lifestyle and the intentions you have behind traveling. I think Tim did a great job of kind of explaining why you should be intentional about creating the life you want. Didn't even have to be traveling, but I think he did a good job of asking us like the deep questions, like what do you really want? Not what society wants for you, not what your parents want for you, not what your friends think you should do. What do you really want? And I do remember reading that book and I had that feeling. I liked how he kind of asked us questions that would make you think about what the ideal lifestyle would be for you. And it clearly affected you because now you're a digital nomad and you're just flying around doing a bunch of different stuff. So that makes a lot of sense why you do what you do. It's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, then. And then another question I wanted to learn because is do you have a favorite quote and what is it and why?
Man, it's funny because like here at this co-working space I'm at now, they be asking me like, what is your motto? I feel like I don't really like have any quotes that really come to like my mind off the top like that, like really go off of. I think the way I will answer that, because me and my wife talk about this all the time. I'm like, you have people that are more like a Bible verse person and they remember the verse. I think I'm more of like a story person. I don't just remember a quote. I remember like the whole story. So I'm not like win or go home. Like I would be like, remember this time Kobe was in the finals, and then you know this and this happened like that. I'm more.
That's more of you. Yeah. Like you told some travel stories. You told a story of you and your mom's boyfriend. So I could see you being a story person.
I don't really remember like a quote. So I'll just remember like, oh, I remember this happened to this person, and then that's what I'm remembering in mind.
Did you share the story? Okay, that's fair, man. That's fair. And then I guess I also just want to keen in on your, you said you have a wife and you seem like you speak greatly of her and positively. How has your wife helped you on this journey we call life? You know, she seems like she has a great impact, and I'm just curious, like, what has that been like for you?
Yeah, I think like my wife has just been like such a big support, because I feel like no matter who you are, there's gonna be times where you want to give up. How man you are, and to have somebody that you can lean on during those times is amazing. And if you can also have someone that's not going to be nagging all the time of like, oh, I thought you said you were going to achieve this, I thought you said you were going to do this, but someone that's like, what can I do to help you get there, and is willing to, sacrifice with you to get there. She also like does some of the work with me, like if I need her to reach out to people or text people or to do whatever. And then just like the day-to-day stuff, like making sure you like that I'm fed, like the clothes are washed, like there's But I think one thing that I realized that my wife does that I think it's easy to take for granted because you can't really
quantify
it. Is praying. Because like I don't know if she's doing it, like if I'm not there, and it's hard to connect like what's going on in my life to that if you don't know. So there could be something that happens, and in my mind it could be like, oh, I met this person because I put myself in the right spot or I prayed or whatever. But I know for a fact that she is really like, she'll tell me like, yo, there's times where I'm praying like 1 or 2 hours like straight for what you're doing, and I feel like that gives you, even when you look in the Bible, that gives you a lot of protection and a lot of blessing. And so anybody that's willing to do that and that consistently does that, I feel like that makes like a huge, there's a underrated it's an underrated thing that you can really do for somebody, and that wives can do for their husbands.
Yeah, man, that's a blessing, man. I hope God blesses me with a wife like that one day. That's awesome. A woman who prays for you an hour or two. I've never even heard of that. Man, I
Right.
hope you don't take that for granted, man. I always expected, no, because usually when people pray for you, it's usually like a couple minutes. I never heard of somebody
Right.
saying, I pray for you for an hour. Like, that's awesome. That's crazy, but that's awesome, man. I'm happy that you have someone who can do that for you, man. Yeah, man, it's interesting, man, because I do feel like behind a lot of successful men, there's a woman who doesn't really get that the credit that she may deserve. That's helping them, and I'm always curious to learn about the sacrifices that each other make to kind of work together for like the same goal, you know. So, man, that's awesome, man. I'm happy to hear that for you, and so you know. Man, you're continuing your goal of becoming a Christian entrepreneur and helping others through your coaching and traveling the world. I'm just curious, do you have like an ultimate goal, D, with everything you're doing, or you're just kind of living life? Like what goal do you have? And yeah.
I mean, like the ultimate goal, I think, is just to make the biggest impact that I can with my life, to just like use my talents and use the time that I have here. And I think that's just going to be a couple things at a time, right? So for me, it's like right now it's building this coaching, helping people with that. But then it's like, how can I get into other things? Like whether that's maybe starting schools, maybe that's starting restaurants, maybe that's writing a book, being in movies. Like what else can I do? You know what I mean? Like just,
Sure.
I think just, I have some ideas, but I think, you know, for me, I feel like God kind of gives me like one thing to work on. And then
Focus on that.
praying like, okay, what's the next thing? And a lot of the times it looks way different than what I expected. And it's hard, but it's just like, all right, let's go with the flow. Let's see what we can do. So I think for me, it's like, I don't ever want to be finished with that. I don't want to be like, okay, I made $1 million. Like, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
I achieved my dreams. I made an impact. Let me coast. I wanted to be like, yo, like up until when he died, like he was doing something with like the talents or the time like that God gave him, even if that's like going out with coffee for the people that I'm in. I don't want to ever stop like serving God or like making an impact, you know, like for his people.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like your ultimate goal is to be of service to others and to God, and
Yeah,
ultimately to God.
for sure.
I mean, I love it, man. Well, D, man, it was a pleasure having you on. I enjoyed chatting with you about entrepreneurship and God and life. It's been great. If people would like to learn more about you, and your business and Undeterred, how can people learn about that and reach out to you?
Yeah, so right now, basically what we're doing is I'm giving away the same exact blueprint that I use to build like a 6-figure online business, like for free.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so if anybody wants that, that's listen to this now. Obviously, if you're listening to this in like 4 months, I don't know if that'll be the same thing. But like if you go to my Instagram, like the link is there. So you just go and then it takes you to a page and you can download it. And you also will get like free 7-day access, like our membership on Deterred, which we've been talking about as well. So you get that, some other cool stuff, and then like access to that. So just go to my Instagram, which is Dee Greene, DEE, and then green like the color with the E at the end. Also YouTube. So yeah, I think those are the two main ways.
Man, shout out to you for sharing that, man. I'm definitely gonna check that out, and see maybe what I can learn. Yeah, man. Well, D, man, I appreciate you for coming on this platform. I wish you best of luck in all your endeavors, and thank you, man.
Appreciate you, bro.